Sunday.
It's Sunday morning.
I love mornings.
The games are over, and we're breaking it all down. This is your Morning After podcast, with all the insight and analysis on the Utes, Cougars, and Aggies. The Morning After podcast with Hans, Scotty, and Lloyd Cole begins right now.
And he gave us an opportunity to come in here and show what we're made of.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, folks. Good Sunday morning. It is another edition of your Morning After podcast. Scott Gerard, Hans Olsen, Lloyd Cole. It's a bittersweet moment because the end of the regular season of college football is here. Last night, BYU wraps things up, and we only have one team going bowling, and that's BYU. Utah, not bowling. Utah State, not bowling. So Cougars are the only team in the state that's on their way to a bowl game, and Hans, one bowl game we know it will be something in the college football playoff, as unfortunately Iowa State getting the win and Arizona State getting the win. So BYU will be finding out next week at this time where they're going bowling, but it will not be in the college football playoff. So at the end of that game, give me your thoughts on what you saw yesterday, because it kind of. Now, look, I get it. The loss last week was kind of a pain in the butt and really changed things for BYU. But that game last night, I think, kind of encapsulates a lot of what the season was, where there was a moment where you needed that Jay Hill defense to make a play, and boom, Jack Kelly did it. Right there, it was on the line for Houston to go down, score a touchdown, win that game, and boom, Jack Kelly comes up, makes a play. Kind of reminded me of the SMU game when SMU had a chance to go down and win the game or send it into OT, and they didn't gain a single yard. And last night it was that BYU defense that shut the door.
I felt like they had it the whole way and maybe blinked for a minute. Saw some things I really liked and saw some things that were really ugly. And as you said, it kind of did encapsulate it all. You know, they started out this game by running some type of reverse, and they ran right into each other, not like bumped each other, but like face mask to face mask. And the ball squirted out and up into the air, and it was caught by Houston, and some big defensive lineman ends up with it rumbling down the sideline. Jake Retzloff saves another touchdown. That's his third touchdown save.
I will say this. He does do a good job of trying to fix mistakes in that regard.
He does, but he chased it down and stopped it. And then you have these incredible moments like Talon Alfrey, the safety for BYU. He was the one guys that the Arizona State squib kick bounced off his leg, and he tried to get to it, and it ended up in Arizona State's hands, and then 7 points for Arizona State. And essentially, Houston tried to do the same thing to him last night, and he hit it in the breadbasket and tucked it up and ran it for a 58-yard kick return for a touchdown. It was wild to see stuff like that. So, I don't know, man, it was some good plays, some bad plays, but I always felt like they had control of the game.
Yeah. Lloyd, how about you? Do you feel like it was never in doubt?
No, it didn't. It didn't feel like it was ever really in doubt. I mean, Houston kept it close with their defense, and but it seemed like it was, it felt like they were going to come out with that win, and unfortunately, I don't know what the vibe was like in there in the stadium, Hands, as everybody was watching that Houston, because I was going back and forth between the two games and watching both those games, and it was it was, I don't know, like it was like on the edge of my seat watching both those games, because both were so close. It was kind of like, I don't know, it was one of those where you needed to have like 3 TVs going on. There was so much going on in college football last night.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Did you get the sense, Hans, when Iowa State and Kansas State, when that thing went final, and you knew that the Big 12 championship game was off the table, was there any kind of vibe in the stadium? Did they announce that score in the stadium, or did? Because I got to imagine that got to those players on that sideline.
Kalani in the postgame said that after half he felt a major difference in the team. Kind of a letdown, kind of a pause of a moment, and he acknowledged that in the postgame. And Kalani was very somber, like very glum in the postgame. And I actually asked him, I said, Kalani, it's 10-2 and you just beat Houston, but I can tell there's some type of reserve. I can tell you're holding back. What's the problem? And he talked about wanting more for his players. He's like, I just wanted more for these guys. We're sitting at 9-0, and we had a moment there where you could possibly have a bye into the college football playoffs and some big conversations and a lot of expectations, and then 2 letdown weeks, and here we are.
But it's like being at the poker table. It's like being at the you had all this money, and you're like you keep going and you keep going. You're like, well, I want more. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. No, you're right. You feel like you should be happy with what you've got, but he definitely felt like there was more. And I think that the players knew it at half. I asked each of them, either Greg or I asked each of them as we went through the interviews throughout the night, and they tried to act like they ignored it and found out at different times, and then tried to act like it didn't really impact their play or how they felt. But there's no way it wouldn't.
No.
There's just no way it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Any red-blooded or warm-blooded American, when they find that out, they're going to be like, doggone it, you got to be kidding me. We had so many different opportunities, and nobody can help us out, and so we'll just beat Houston and go to either the Pop-Tart or the Alamo Bowl. I mean, that's I'm sure that there was a letdown. There's just no way there wasn't.
It's impossible for there not to be, honestly. And had Kansas State been able to get that win, I got to imagine your second half performance would have been much, much different. But I mean, and I'm saying that as a guy that's, in my 40s. I mean, I can't imagine the emotional swing. I mean, put yourself in those shoes, hands as a player, and you find out, and you're like, all along, you go to the season. What's your goals for this year? Get back to a bowl game. Get back to a bowl game. Well, that stuff, you hit that, 6 weeks ago. You hit bowl eligibility. And so now you've spent the last month and a half thinking of other things and thinking, hey, there's a chance we could have a really special season. And I'm glad Kalani didn't try to put a little spin on it and say, oh, we're just happy to be at a bowl game, and just show like, yeah, it's okay to be pissed. It's okay to be sick to your stomach, because the guys that are coming back next year, if they get off to a hot start again, they can reference and say, hey, you know what, we were close last year and we screwed it up. We can't screw this up again. So this is a reference point for coaches and players down the line.
Can't believe this season comes down to a quick kick bouncing off the BYU player's head against Kansas. If that doesn't happen, then BYU they cover it, they get possession, and that game's probably over. Instead, gives Kansas possession inside the 5-yard line, and it's a quick touchdown. And that changed the season. Getting back in that game against Arizona State was another thing, and then throwing a pick on that final drive off the 39 when you felt like that drive was going to get in and they were going to take the lead and give only seconds to Arizona State. So there's moments that you blink and you just can't believe that that's what it comes down to for BYU. And I can't. You can't overstate 10-2 enough. It's just amazing, but it is such a weird feeling. It's like, man, what an amazing season, but what a massive letdown that you're not going to be in that Big 12 championship game.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how many times you say, well, you weren't even expected to. You barely expected to go bowling. You should be happy. You're 10-2. You could tell fans that, and they're not. It doesn't matter now. All that. Considering, because what was there to be had is gone. Yeah. Like, it doesn't even matter now. The 10-2 is that's an amazing season, but it's never going to feel like a 10-2.
No,
like a 10-2 should feel.
Yeah, and that's I don't know. I think when the years pass, these guys will look back and say that was a special year, and I think that they'll shake it off and hopefully have a good performance in a bowl game. But I don't know, 5 years from now, Hans, when we look back on this year, are we talking about the late season collapse and the back-to-back losses, or are we talking about a really good year by Kalani?
It might actually, in one of those rare occasions, depend on how they go to this bowl game and what they do.
Yeah.
I think the most likely pick. This is my just a gut. Nobody's told me this, and nobody's feels like they're leaning this way. But I feel like it's going to be the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, and I feel like it's going to be Colorado. I think it's going to be BYU and Colorado, because Alamo Bowl still has the Pac-12 ties and the late editions, the Big 12 editions.
So essentially a conference game for a
right,
for a bowl game, huh?
That is weird.
Well, yeah, that's how I say it, because correct me if I'm wrong, Scotty, don't those Pac-12 teams still have that bowl game affiliation? So Colorado actually still has the Pac-12 bowl game ties for this season.
I believe you're right, and I saw a bunch of people rejecting BYU going up against Colorado. Like it's weird. It doesn't feel right. It feels dirty.
You're rejecting
Not
it
dirty.
as
I guess it feels like
feels
you're going on a date with your sister.
I don't know about that. Like, I mean, I just look at it from a standpoint of you're playing prime, you're playing a good team, but I'm looking at all these bowl projections, and a lot of them have BYU and Colorado, Hans. Like, I'm looking at CBS, BYU Colorado, ESPN, BYU Colorado, the Action Network, that's Brett McMurphy, BYU Colorado. Like, there's a ton of people out there that think this is what you're playing out.
Give it to me. Give it to me. Give me that game. I don't feel like I feel like that's an amazing matchup. It'll put every eyeball on you. It'll be in the primetime kick position. You already heard Coach Prime say he hasn't gotten anybody to opt out, and he's suggesting every kid play. Kalani said pretty much the same yesterday. He said, I haven't heard a single individual whisper that they're not interested in whatever we got coming up in the postseason. If you get an interested BYU team and an interested Colorado team that invest and put time into that game, that'll be a great send-off. And, getting yourself to 11-2 be a pretty incredible thing.
Yeah.
With a win over Prime. Or if you get beat in that game, then I think it just, you further drop your head and feel like, man, what could have been with this season when it all boils down to it.
Chase Roberts, by the way, was honored at Senior Day. Now, he's just a junior. He'd be one guy I'd be concerned about wanting to shut it down, because he said that, I believe publicly he said he's leaning towards going to the NFL. And when you honor a junior, usually there's some indication there that he wants to make the jump to the next level. But I don't know. If you're playing Colorado and you get a chance to see Travis Hunter in that defensive backfield, I got to imagine the competitor you are like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go. So that'd be good to see. All right, let's shift gears. By the way, we'll have all that. We won't know bowl games officially until probably a week from today. After Championship Saturday is when a lot of those bowl games get announced. So it'll be a minute for BYU to have to kind of regroup and figure out exactly what they're looking at in terms of a bowl game. We know Utah's not going to a bowl game. Lloyd, did that win on Friday, did that help out the bad taste in Utah fans' mouth, or is it just maybe a little lipstick on a pig?
I think the bad taste is still there. Now, like me and Christian were talking about it. I mean, it was a lot of what to expect in the offseason now with Utah talking about that. I mean, it was good to talk about, like, finally, sending out the seniors with a win, and man, it was a post game of boy, what Utah had another great defense, and it was not to be. That offense just left them hanging. Another season where the offense wasn't to be. It was just another great defense wasted, is what it kind of felt like. But it was like, we talked about it. Kyle Whittingham and that team, Kyle Whittingham avoided having the first 8-game losing streak in Utah football history in a season. It was like I said, a win for the seniors, and man, I'll tell you what, that that defense, and the team is still young. But the thing is, it's like, and that's why it was so hard to talk about. What's next for Utah is don't have any idea what the heck's next for this team.
Yeah,
but it was, but that defense is. I mean, think about this. That defense, they had 41 points in 2 games between the defense and the special teams. 3 pick sixes in 2 games.
Jeez.
Like, that defense was so good. And they were banged up, too. They were banged up. Sorry, I got an alarm going off.
I didn't know if that was you or me.
No, that's me. There's
Okay.
an alarm that just keeps going off. I don't know where it's at. So
you got a smoke detector? Or
yeah,
something?
that might be a smoke detector, possibly. It's our Xavier's. Xavier's turning 10 today, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday, Xavier!
So
Happy
get a little
birthday.
a nice little breakfast that's being done up. So
How's that baby?
how's that baby? But anyways, so yeah, it was. I don't know. It was to be honest with you, and I'm sure Utah fans felt the same way. It was a relief to get the season over with.
Yeah.
It was a relief. Like, talking about there for a while, like 7 straight losses was about as painful as anything that I think I've been a part of. It's like, I told Christian, I was like, man, just give us one win to talk about a win. And it was good to get that.
I think you're right. And Hans, in our terms, we look at this as we've been looking towards an off season for a while, and I just can't imagine that Kyle Whittingham shuts it down. And I know there'll be a lot of speculation here, but back-to-back losses to BYU, a losing season, no bowl game. Is it part of Kyle's DNA to be able to walk away in that kind of a situation? And I just don't think it's in the cards, man. I just don't think so.
No, he's not shutting it down. He'll be back. He loves the game too much. He's still got a lot of life in him. Still really healthy, motivated. He'll find his time to get away, and he'll reboot. He'll be back. It's just they got to figure out an offensive coordinator, and they got to figure out an offense. Keep wasting these good defenses, and it's a real head scratcher. And I'm sure Utah fans are so sick and tired of it, watching these offenses continue to flop and fail and not buoy up the defense. The last time you felt like the offense really showed up full force, it was that 2018 where they went undefeated and Brian Johnson put together some game plans and gave you the offense that you needed in big crunch minutes. And I mean, other than that, I can't. There was maybe a Huntley team or two.
Yeah, those
had
Huntley
good
teams,
running backs.
They were pretty outside of towards the end of the seasons. Those offenses were pretty potent. Yeah,
they were. And then Cam Rising at times through the Pac-12 championship games, he gave you a boost, but it's just this recent 2-year taste in my mouth. It's like, man, figure out this offense and buoy up this defense. Just think if you put a good offense with that defense, how much time that gives them to take a deep breath and how much confidence it breathes into them, and you just can't find that.
I saw, and Lloyd, I don't know if you saw this coming across in your post game, and I don't. And now I'm trying to find it because I'm not seeing it on Twitter anymore. So maybe it was all just, I don't want to Christian Cox this thing. but I saw a rumor floating around on Twitter that the Washington State OC might be in the running or might be the guy at OC at Utah. Did anybody see that? Or am I just up in the night on that?
No, I
Here it
did
is.
not see that.
Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, I think
Did you
that's a
Christian
fake.
Cox it?
I think that's a fake account. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a national columnist for. No, I'm not buying that one. So never mind. I did see a rumor that his name is Jason Arbuckle, the Washington State OC, that he could be in the running for the next OC job at Utah. But Nothing to see here, folks. And if he is, then we'll take credit for it later. But I don't anticipate that Kyle is settled in or Morgan is settled in. But I do like the fact that Kyle, as Lee said, Lloyd, that Morgan will have a big say in it because, for the most part, this is going to be Morgan's OC. Because hopefully that means that this guy's had some success and they don't have to make a move on a guy in another year or two.
Yeah, Morgan needs to have all the say for pretty much everything going. You know, a lot of say in everything that goes forward. I mean, that's just if he's the coach in waiting, that's what it is. And I, Hans thinks, probably it's feeling like, Kyle's going to be back. I have no feeling whatsoever on this. I've never I don't have a feeling either way. Like, I have no idea what Kyle's going to do. Like, I've never been more uncertain about something than I am what Kyle Whittingham's going to do. You heard his comments on Monday. It's like, I'm going to do what's best for the team. That almost feels like it was like, you know what? Because I don't know. I have no idea if him sticking around for just one more year. Because I feel like if he's going to come back, and Christian said this in the postgame, like, if he's coming back, he's coming back for 3 years. Like, it's going to be like a 3-year type thing. Like, he's not just coming back for one season. So if that's the case, then maybe.
What's the rationale there that would be 3 years?
He just doesn't think that he's only going to do one for as far as for the recruits and all that point. Like, he thinks like if he's going to go all the way, like, he's doing for 3 years. Like, he doesn't think he's just going to try to right the ship for one season.
Well, and that's the other thing too. I don't know if Kyle knows right now. I mean, one thing, Kyle could be 100% yes, I'm on board. Let's run it back, and then could change his mind. One thing about Kyle is that, and we all found out the hard way on this in 2005 when it appeared like he was on his way to take the BYU job, and then all of a sudden he stays at the University of Utah. Kyle will change his mind at any given moment, and until there's an official announcement, I'm with Hans. Like, I would be shocked. I would be absolutely floored if he does not come back for another year. But it also wouldn't surprise me that if he's right now telling people that, hey, guess what, I'll be back, and then all of a sudden gets away for a week or so and then goes, yeah, you know what, I'm okay walking away. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Let's shift gears before we wrap up. Utah State. I did not have the call on this one. I was in Orlando with Utah State basketball. But there's collapses, Hans, and then there's what we saw in that game. 30-13 with about 13 minutes left in the game, and Utah State's up by 17. And they end up losing the game, not even in overtime. They end up losing it in regulation, 42-30. Turnovers, inability to get off the field on fourth down. Just a array. Any way that you could have lost that game, Utah State found a way to lose that in a rough setting, and I know that was a tough pill to swallow. But again, we talk about how one play kind of encapsulates the BYU season. I think that fourth quarter kind of encapsulates the season for Utah State. Just a rough performance there.
Man, they had them. They just had them in their sights. And Bryson Barnes did some great things, and then he did some heartbreaking things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You go out and throw for 190 yards, and you run for 190 yards, and you have a combined 4 touchdowns, and then you've got the 2 picks. And one of them was one of the most critical moments and critical times and game-changing interceptions that you could possibly throw. Colorado State did a good job of taking advantage of it. And I thought that was that Braden Fowler. I thought that was his best game that I've seen him play, especially when they got some momentum going their way. But there's so many things to be proud of with this Utah State team. You know, we're sitting here talking about one side of the ball doing it for Utah and the other kind of letting it down, and it's flip-flopped with this Utah State team. The offense did enough, and this defense has just been lacking throughout major parts of this season.
Yeah. Tough way to end the season. for Utah State. They wrap up the year at 4-8 on the year, and just tough pill to swallow. But much like Utah, now the offseason is going to be the far more interesting thing than the last stretch of the season, as they've got a coach. I would anticipate that you will probably get something by the end of this week or Monday of next week at the latest. Monday the 9th is when the transfer portal opens, and so that is when guys are going to hit that portal. And there's going to be guys leaving. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm around the team. I hear rumblings, and so I don't care if you bring in the ghost of Bill Walsh. There's going to be a level of turnover on a team in this day and age of college football. It's just going to be the case. So there's going to be probably a significant amount of players that hit that transfer portal, regardless of who you get as your head coach. But I do know that Diana Sabo and that athletic department is going to do everything they can to have that wrapped up probably by Friday or Saturday of this week, or at the very moment have an official announcement on Monday of the following week. But there's a lot of good people in play. There's a lot of rumors circulating with Jay Hill, Bronco Mendenhall. Social media is hopping on those two, and we just got to wait and see. Now, Bronco, by the way, lost last night. Kind of an upset. New Mexico loses to Hawaii, so they're 5-7. They're not going to a bowl game. So Bronco suddenly has a bunch of time on his hands. Jay Hill doesn't have a Big 12 game a championship game to prepare for. So, so a lot of this stuff can happen quickly now with those guys not having some obligations that they may have otherwise. But I'll say this: I think that whoever Utah State goes with, I think that they're going to be in good hands. The people that I've heard about publicly and privately, I think Utah State's going to be in pretty good hands on this one before it's all said and done.
I sure hope that's the case, man. That program deserves it. They deserve the best case scenario. Got a lot of pride in that place up there, and
yeah. Well,
really excited to have my son up there.
I mean, you've got more interest in this than even I do, because of you've got blood going up there. I mean, you want to make sure you send your kid to a place where they're watched over, protected, and can develop the right way and continue on. And so this means a lot more to you than it does, me. And I'm just selfish. I just want to call wins and losses, or just call wins. This hits home personally for you.
It doesn't. Just in being way open, all the conversations Scotty and I've had, I mean, I definitely have a vested interest, but all of the conversations we had and the names we've talked about have been very positive.
Yeah. Yep.
I've been very encouraged, and Rock has been very encouraged, and we feel like the search is headed in the right direction. Now, I just hope it doesn't take some weird veer, and as we've talked about, end up being some no-name Midwest wide receivers coach that's coming out of a big program.
Yeah,
right? That it's his first time with the head coaching job and he doesn't know the landscape. Like, if it takes a weird U-turn like that, I'm not going to have optimism. I'm going to be really bummed and upset that they weren't able to put together some money, because I do believe that this newly reorganized Pac-12 has a lot of potential. When you're talking about having Boise State be a part of that thing, it's got a lot of potential. And you want to make sure that you get a competitive head coach. And if you do, then you'll keep some of these big recruits that you were able to land, and you should be able to go win some games in that conference. It's just don't mess it up. The names I've heard, I like.
Yeah, and likewise too. And the one thing that I will give, I'm going to give Diana Sabo a ton of credit for, is in all of her public conversations, and I've heard her reiterate this to boosters as well, is that she is putting a strong priority on, obviously, he's got to be a quality coach. But then she wants head coaching experience. So it doesn't sound as if she's going to take a flyer on somebody as a first-year head coach. She wants head coaching experience, preferably somebody who's a head coach currently, and or has extensive head coaching experience, and then also somebody that knows the LDS and Utah culture. And I cannot tell you how good that makes me feel, because Utah is an interesting place to recruit and interesting place to really try to settle in and learn how to figure out the high school scene, the religious culture scene, all of that. You just can't drop somebody in and say, figure it out, and have them have immediate success. You've got to be able to have somebody that knows what they're walking into, and she understands that. And for somebody who came in with no vibe with the culture and no vibe with the state of Utah, to be able to say and adapt and say, hey, you know what? I know that it is important for our football team to have these connections and to know exactly what they're walking into and know how to recruit the state and have some level of experience, whether it's a family member that's LDS, or they themselves are LDS, or that they've coached in Utah and know what it's like to recruit in the state. That is a very high priority for her, to have somebody that's got that type of background and culture that understands what they're getting into. And I think that's really cool, and I think that's super important, because we've seen athletic directors there that have been like, no, I'm going to hire my guy, and I know what's best, blah, 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 blah. And she's been very upfront and saying, no, I need somebody in here that loves Utah, that loves the culture, that understands it, and is ready to go to work and figuring it out. And I think that's really cool to see.
I'm encouraged, man.
Yep. All right. Well, that wraps it up for us. Guys, this is kind of it, man. This is crazy. Unless somebody wants to come in and sponsor this bad boy, we'll keep doing it during basketball season. We just need Monster or Rockstar or somebody to step in and do it. I already cracked my can. I didn't put it up to the mic, though. But
it's what will keep us awake to do it early in the morning.
Yeah. Yep. Let's go rattle those trees a little bit, rattle those branches, and let's see what falls out. All right. Hope you guys have a great Sunday. It sounds like Thanksgiving went well for you, Hans. Prime rib was good.
Yeah, knocked it out of the park. We're actually going to eat the leftovers today, so we'll fry those things up.
Oh, I'm glad they made it. How was and Fawn worked her magic too?
Oh yeah, the pies were perfect. The whole spread was perfect. Actually, I ended up eating a couple of rolls. I told you guys I'm not the roll guy.
Yeah.
But my sister-in-law Amy made these. It was like a croissant roll, and then my mom brought 3 different fresh jams.
Oh, yeah.
A homemade cherry, a strawberry, and a blueberry. And so you had these jams and these fresh croissant rolls with some soft butter that were homemade croissant rolls that were just so good. So, yeah, that's the first time I've actually really poured into the rolls and thought, okay, maybe I'm going to rate these things.
There's nothing that tastes better to me than a homemade fresh roll, and yeah, just drip it in butter and a little bit of jam. Mm-hmm. I had to bring you some of Elsie's jam. I got a bunch of that in the freezer. I'll bring you some of that.
What kind you got? Raspberry?
She does a raspberry, a strawberry, and then she does a mix of a peach and a strawberry that's really good.
Yeah. I love fresh jam, man.
Yeah.
I love raspberry. Raspberry's that's my jam.
Ayo.
Ayo.
You get car crash for that.
It is my jam. I love it.
All right, guys. We'll have a good one. We'll be back at it on Monday at high noon. Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, Lloyd Cole. That is your Morning After podcast right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This has been your Morning After podcast with Hans, Scotty, and Lloyd Cole. Catch more of the Hans and Scotty Show weekdays from noon to 3 and in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your podcasting platform of choice. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.